Welcome to another British Council and Action Extreme Actors Masterclass. I'm truly honored to be able to present and interview for you for this session a commanding presence within the film Son of the Soil. And when I say commanding presence, I'm just not saying that for fun because our dear honorable sister, Iretiola Doyle, plays the character of Commander Obi. That, believe me, when you see this sister, she really does command authority on the screen. It's a very powerful performance. So, sister, welcome. How you doing, Sister Areti?
Good, brother Akin. Thank you so much for that warm welcome.
Sister Areti, if you can just briefly introduce your way into the film industry, um, describe the journey that led you into acting.
All right, my name is Iretiola Doyle. I'm in Nigeria. I'm an actor, a writer, producer. Um, Acting was something I could always do. It came naturally. It wasn't a conscious thing in my mind as a young girl. I mean, play, if there was a play going on in school, I would more often than not get selected to play a role. Um, The first real acting came one day. I was at work and a young lady walked up to me and said, "Oh, I think you can act and I want you to take part in my production." And I'm like, "Why do you think that?" She said, "No, I just think that you can act." Okay. And I think she often when I tell this story, I say that she was way ahead of her time because our industry was nowhere near what it is today. And she wrote this really interesting script, and we shot a couple of episodes. Um, the very famous late God rest his soul Saint Toby acted directly opposite me at the time. I think he was my brother, returnee or something. Um, but sadly, it never saw the light of day. Um, then there were a few bit roles, but the real journey began in 1995, where I auditioned for a role in the series called Behind the Cloud. No, not Behind the Cloud, sorry. Riddles and Hopes. It was a huge hit in Jos back in the day, produced and directed by Matt Dadsey. I did that for a bit. Um, and then what happened? And then I auditioned for Behind the Clouds. It was one of the biggest shows at the time. Again, it came out of Jaws.
Oh,
Everybody wanted to be on that show. It was a show that everybody rushed home to watch.
okay.
I auditioned. That's a different story entirely. I auditioned for that, got the role, was scheduled to shoot. The production bus arrived to pick me up to take me to go shoot around 8 p.m. I think it was supposed to be a night scene.
Hmm.
The late great Sadiq Daba was part of the production team. He was one that came out of the bus and said, "Yeah, Mutepi, let's go." And I looked him dead in the eye and I told him, "They won't believe it." I said, "I've changed my mind."
Hmm.
He looked me
Oh,
dead in the eye, didn't say one word. He just turned around, hopped in the bus, and drove off. Yeah,
so okay. So
yeah.
what led you to express that you would change your mind?
I will share it without any guile or shame because I was younger then, and this might help any young person out there with it. I had a friend who talked
Yeah.
me out of it. And with hindsight, it was for purely selfish reasons on her side. So at the time, a bit of tragedy had surrounded the show. The lead actor had passed. And you know how it is at these spots. There are all kinds of funny stories, blah, 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 blah. And I won't say exactly what she said, but she needled and needled and needled and needled at my insecurities until I let her get into my head. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I really shouldn't take this opportunity. Yeah,
Mm.
so that's how that opportunity went. But I believe, you know, if it's your path, you will always find it and it will always find you. Right? Fast forward somewhere in the late 90s, I had this itch. I had this itch. And it wasn't something you said proudly at the time. I want to be an actor. You know, people still look at you funny, you know, I want to be an actor. Um, but finally I could voice it out to a friend of mine. And I was like, okay, pursue it. Who can you talk to? Blah, 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 you know, encouraged me to talk to a few people. Fortunately, I had a good friend who was knew another friend who was like a director in a small production company in Ikeja at the time. I was like, oh, okay. Fortunately, we're having an audition next week. Let her come in. Um, let her audition. If she gets a role, fine. That's it then. I came in, I auditioned, I got the role. It was for the character Sharifatu in Pickles and Hopes. That was produced by Patrick Doyle. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Wow. I suppose, yes, another life lesson in that for especially any young people that will be watching this masterclass is that, you know, if you're going to surround yourself with any type of friend, especially within this industry, make sure you have a friend or friends that the same as what they would want for themselves, they also want for you.
Or
Uh,
even better,
or even better, yes, indeed. Because wow, many a snake can come in the form of a smiling face.
you know, sometimes it's not even so much not her not wanting me to succeed, but she wanted me with her. She knew that I think she could see that this would be the beginning of, but she wanted me with her, and that in itself is destructive. So yeah, I guess it all comes back to what you just said. Mhm.
So again, with your journey, I mean, so how did like training or mentorship and especially like self-education? Because you know, I've picked up from you that it seems like you're a person that again you can be very inspirational in the pathway that you've gone down of even self-teaching and self-educating yourself in performance. So how's all that shaped you as an actor, especially the type of actor that you are today?
The training I have received in different areas has shaped the kind of performer I am today. Um, Number one, I'm theater trained. I have my degree is in theater arts from University of Jos. The University of Jos Theater Arts Department is not beans, or it wasn't back in the day, and that is Nigerian slang for it's not a walk in the park, right? When you're anybody is there's a certain discipline with being trained in the theater. You also learn how to be a good team player because unless it's a one-man show, you all sink or swim together. So when you're theater trained, you really do not have time for all that fluff and extra add-ons that allow that that you find in film in film. I don't want to trigger anybody in film stars in film performers. You understand? That's what. There's certain discipline that probably someone who is theater trained. One, two. I have extensive experience as a producer and presenter. So as a producer, you know how much work goes on behind the scenes, right? I started from the bottom up. I was the gopher at the first production company I worked at. Buffets. Yeah. Um, so you can appreciate how much work the crew have to do for you to look good. school. And I used to see how much easier it would be if these people just act a certain way, or if they understood certain things and blah 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 blah. Um, I have been taught to. I know how to romance the camera. I know how to work a camera. Um, I know how to make it work for me. To do that, that if you've produced and presented a TV show for a decade, come on, the camera becomes your best friend. So that's an added advantage for any actor. So all I've done is that all the lessons, all the technical tricks that I have learned in every single version of myself, I brought to bear into my acting career. I'm a very reasonable person on set because I know exactly how much work goes into setting this whole apparatus up. And I know it's in terms of labor. I know it's in terms of this because if you ever produced something, if when you're now on the business end of things, you know how much one day of faffing around of set will cost the entire production and how that sets you back. So when you have all this information in your head, it just helps you conduct yourself in a particular way.
So, I mean, it sounds like all that experience has definitely given you a holistic viewpoint and a holistic understanding of all the different components that make up the industry. Um, so so as a word of advice, would you say that even especially for young people that are coming up, that even if their focus is on performance, but would you encourage them to learn all the other parts of the machinery, all the other spinning plates that are spinning simultaneously regarding the film industry and the production, because that just strengthens you even as a performer when you get to understand all the other parts that go into it.
My desire for knowledge in all the areas is a lot deeper. But as a performer, should you have a working understanding of how all the other departments work? Absolutely. Absolutely. You must understand that what we do is teamwork. Uh, and while you are the star, while everything um, is laid out so you can perform. In fact, because everything is laid out so you can perform, do you understand? The onus is on you. It's a responsibility that you need to bear.
Okay.
That's how I see it.
Right.
So it's wise. It is wise for you to have a working understanding. I mean, it, why won't you understand camera angles? If you don't understand camera angles, how do you know how to give your best? How do you know how to flirt with the camera? How do you know how to make the camera work for you? How do you know how, if you're shooting in a tight corner, how do you know how to position your body in such a way that you're not giving profile, but at the same time, you're still fighting, you're supposed to be fighting with
And I like your expression earlier, knowing how to seduce the camera.
apps? Yeah.
Okay. I love that.
Yes. Yes.
So,
So yes, have a working understanding of how everything works. It'll
right.
make you a better performer, I promise you.
Again, leading on from that, I mean, so how would you describe the Nigerian film industry today, particularly from an actor's perspective? And again, if you can even answer that, especially from a female perspective, how have you seen the changes over the years regarding the Nollywood industry with women's involvement, with female collaboration, and females taking even a lead in the industry?
Nollywood has grown tremendously in leaps and bounds. Um, and it is forever evolving. It is very dynamic. Um, and it has had its, how would I put it? I don't. It's had its era, different eras. You understand? And with each time, the practitioners have been able to pivot, adapt, and still manage to produce. Our technical values have improved tremendously to the point where we're able to compete, with productions across from all over the world. We've managed to export ourselves to the four corners of the globe. We have followings all over the world. We hear of international collaborations, huge collaborations. We hear of big streamers who have come here looking to strengthen and exploit the market. Um, you have people like Africa Magic who have been here for over 20 years, and all the infrastructure that we have created to support this industry. So there has been tremendous growth, um, especially for actors. Back in the day, it used to be a whole lot difficult to break into the industry. But now it's still not a walk in the park. You still need to pay your dues and do your time and catch that lucky break. Um, but the possibilities are are more out there. Do you get? There's a lot more going on in the industry. As to being a woman in the world, it has its challenges. Period. In general, period. Let's not go there. Being a woman in Nigeria has its challenges. Not talk of being a woman in any kind of industry. It comes with its own peculiar set of challenges. But this is how I view it. We know these challenges are there, and this is not to be dismissed at all. Um, but this is how I approach life in general. These challenges are there. You're gonna have to find a way through, around, under, above, or do you understand? We're not gonna sit here been wasting time and energy mourning about the situation. We're gonna find a way to work regardless. And I'm very proud to see that a number of women are doing that successfully. Some of the biggest names in television and film conversations today are women. Do you understand? They're leading the pack. We're talking Kemi Adetiba, we're talking Jadu Shibero, we're talking Funke Akindele, we're talking Tony Abraham. They're leading the pack and they're doing really, really well. Are there areas where we can improve? Absolutely. Um, 10, 15 years ago, I used to complain that the writing for women, female characters, left a lot to be desired. You you were one of three things: a witch, a bitch, or a whore. There was difficulty in writing for women. That has changed. There are a lot of female characters out there that are multi-layered, complex, and the, some of them are villainous, but we understand why. You love them for who they are. The writing has gotten so much better. I'm happy to say. As an actor, there's a lot I would like to see improve in terms of how we treat our human capital, um, working conditions, um, royalties, um, safety conditions, working hours. Uh, if we have a guild or a union, let's strengthen it. Let's give it some bite and let's actually protect our workforce. But I'm also a firm believer that in this day and age where everybody's looking to be offended and everybody's looking to put the worst interpretation. You say good morning and there's somebody somewhere that's going to put some sort of, you know, interpretation on your good morning. Did you not see the inflection? This is what it meant. Um, so I'm a firm believer that if you value the sound of your voice and the words that come out of your mouth, you don't talk frivolously and you don't cast pearl before swine. when we're ready to fix our bits and pieces of our industry that needs fixing, people take the conversations into the rooms and into the organizations where talk will actually count and hopefully effect change.
The word will then become flesh, hopefully.
Amen. Amen.
Yes,
But where we're nowhere, we may not be where we want to be 100%.
mm,
There's always room for growth, but no, we've grown tight. We've grown. We've
right.
grown.
So again, from your perspective, what do you think makes Nollywood and the wider Nigerian screen sector unique compared to other global industries? So what do you think is that uniqueness, those unique factors about Nollywood?
I think the way we tell our stories, it started out by over, overly verbose. I don't know if that's how I would. I remember we used to talk too much, but that's the way we tell our stories. I think our storytelling, the kind of stories we tell, um, and the fact that we have such a rich, multifaceted culture that we tend to draw from, and the fact that other cultures recognize themselves in us, therefore makes that. Eh, oh, I take the wedding party for instance. I strongly believe that one of the reasons why that film was so successful was because that it didn't matter what country you were from or what language you spoke. Everybody can recognize somebody they know in one of the characters in that, you know. It's either the bitchy mother-in-law or the goofy uncle or, we all have these big weddings and we all see the chaos that takes place. So we recognize ourselves in the stories that we tell. What else makes us unique? There's just something about Nigeria. Yeah, I don't want to call it stardust because, sometimes that's something about it's not always positive, but there's just something about some certain quality that draws eyes. Something about we have a certain flair,
A certain
regardless of
Nigerians have a certain swagger.
a certain swagger. Even if you understand, even when things are not 100% okay. Um,
Yes.
I, yeah. Let me leave it at that.
Especially nowadays with the establishment of social media presence, which for a different generation of actors, um having that accessibility wasn't there before. So now with young actors coming up, it's almost like they can create their own marketing PRing campaign as a performer. So how important is it regarding personal branding? Um, how important is it to be able to establish your visibility? Um, and does that even influence casting and career momentum nowadays, especially for younger actors coming up? I mean, is there any advice you can give regarding how you put yourself out there, especially nowadays, where once you put something out there, it's just out there? So is there any advice you can give to actors regarding their visibility and presence?
I'm probably the worst person to ask that question because if you ask a social media manager, they will tell you that no, 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 this is the worst strategy possible. And if you're going by the number of followers, they would be correct. I have on Instagram, for instance, I have less than 500,000 followers. I think they're 470 something. And it's remained constant. So I know that these people have stayed with me for years. They understand my rhythm. If she doesn't post for a week and she decides to post today, we will welcome her, we will hear what she has to say, we will engage. They have accepted me that way. However, I had built my fan base offline. It's been many years to even get on Instagram. Do you understand? So they already kind of know who I am. They already know that Iretiola is kind of private on a normal, so we don't expect to see her here every day. However, social media is here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future. And yes, our decisions made along the lines of social media count and visibility for some campaigns, absolutely, especially when we're talking about add-ons. There was a time that producers were actually using that as a metric for casting, but they learned very, very quickly that just because somebody has a large social media following and engagement, A, number one, it doesn't mean that they will act. B, number it doesn't mean that the audience wants to see them in the cinema. And three, it doesn't mean that it will translate to ticket sales. So they learned that very, very quickly. Um, Personal branding, social media is a tool, and as useful as it is also brutal. So um what here's how I approach social media. And please, like I said, the numbers speak for themselves. My contemporaries have followers in the millions. I have 475, but I have 475, right? You must remain authentic. Whatever it is, you remain authentic. If you're crazy, remain authentic, crazy. The same people who applaud you today will crucify you tomorrow. Um, Curate your life carefully. Personally speaking, more than half of my life is laid out in the public arena by virtue of what I do, right? Whether you realize or recognize that you have that effect or have that connection with your audience, sir, ma, dear young actor, you are different things to different people, depending on what they watched and how you made them feel while they were watching, right? So you can never meet anybody's expectation. You don't even know what those expectations are, to be fair. So decide who you are when you're not working. Decide who you are, who are you when you're not performing, and be that person consistent. It makes life easy.
Sister Areti, why did you say you're not sure if you're the right person to answer that question?
It's all about the numbers these days and
You answered it perfectly with the, as far as I'm concerned, with brilliant wisdom of advice, especially for a young person
thank
nowadays
you.
coming up in all of that. Seriously. Going back to your role of playing Commander Obi, um, so how do you approach character development, especially for an emotionally complex or morally conflicting roles? Um, because again, Commander Obi is a very interesting character within the film and how the story plays out. I don't want to give no plot spoilers away, but how the narrative plays out with Commander Obi is very interesting. So, how do you prepare for such a role? What's your approach?
Uh, it always begins with research. Your first port of call is a script. There's so much you can glean from the script. And if you're lucky, you should also request for a character Bible, which is essentially a document that will tell you some of the most important things that you that let me just say let me no let me rephrase. You ask for a character Bible, and that will give you details about the character. It can include how they look, how they dress. If you're fortunate, it might include some of their backstory. Um, so that gives you an insight into who that character is. Oh, this is Ajoken. She's a woman in her late 50s. She's rich. She she likes to party, she drinks, she's life of the party. So even if that's all you see, you already know that she's rich, well traveled. This so she speaks in a particular way. Because if you're rich and you're well traveled, unless it is expressly captured there that you're you're semi illiterate, you know to carry yourself in a certain way. So you glean little details about the character from the character, but then you read the script. You read it I read it the first time like a story, and I put it away. Then I read it again. This time, paying attention to my character and how they react to other people. Then I read it a third time, and this time you're focusing on the interaction between the characters. If you're lucky, you get a conversation with the director. Maybe, maybe not, but you will do the research. You do your homework. As an actor, it is expected that you come. I want to use the word. I want to use the term semi prepared very carefully, and I'll explain why. You are expected to come to set with some form of characterization in your head. You must have thought about this character. How are you going to deliver the line? How are you going to you have to give the director something to work with. So you do the first thing, and the director, hmm, okay, I like what you did here, but tweak this here, tweak that here. Or he'll go, mm-mm, this is not how I envision the character. This is what I would like you to do. But you've given them something to work with, right? So there's that. Then you get a table read if you're lucky, right? So you thought I thought about this character, I understand where they're coming from, I understand some of their triggers. So if there's an explosive scene in the film, I understand what led to that. Maybe they suffered abuse in their past life, or there's some insecurity that informs how they behave today. Something, information, the clues are in the script. Then you get a table read if you're lucky. You may not. You may meet yourself the first day of shoot. And then when you do that table, you now get a feel of how we play off each other. So you know how to tweak it as you go along. That's how I build characters. So everything I find, and like people watch a lot. Um,
Okay, that's interesting.
yes,
Mm, mm.
I watch a lot. Um, so and I'm not just watching for the surface, not just the body language or you know facial
You're
expression.
trying to
But I'm
pick up
watching
those
how they
subtle nuances. You're trying to pick up those subtle nuances when you're people watching.
how they react in situations, and why, what triggered this reaction. You know, the human, because everything we do in acting is psychology, emotion, real emotions. You know, why there's action and reaction. This person says this and I react this way. Why do people how do people pursue the things that they want? What are the things that they do when the stakes get higher? And these are all the things that you do in acting and in film. You know, that's essentially what we're doing. We're creating a story, building tension. That I want something, your character wants something. What are we ready to do or say to get what we want until there's a clash, there's a crescendo, and there's a result. So that's how I build my character.
So what was it like collaborating with a UK Nigerian creative team on this story?
And you know, it's while the industry is big, it's I mean, because there are different enclaves in different states. Um, but here, Lagos, and it's the same people. We will meet ourselves on different sets. Do you understand? We more likely than not work together before. So it's like working with family. But the real adventure, the real yeah, that's the word. The real adventure for me was working with Chi. And my approach to every set, especially when if I'm working with that director for the first time, and especially if that director comes highly recommended, and has such a huge profile. I arrive tabula rasa. I pretend like I don't know anything. I'm here to learn. I'm an instrument. You never know where you're gonna learn something new. And this is this is an international director with a fantastic body of work. Surely has some tricks up his sleeves. So you're there to be, you're there to pay attention as well. Not just do your thing, but also pay attention. So yeah, it was just see his process, how his mind works, how he takes his camera, and being able to lend myself to that.
Being here in London, I got to see the reaction and response that the audience had. So for yourself, again, as an actress, slash now producer, what does it mean to see Nigerian stories reach UK cinemas and international audiences?
To be accepted, it validates that this thing isn't just a figment of our imagination. We can do this and we can do it big. We're doing it. And we're not just doing it. There was a time when we were just doing it for ourselves. No, now we're doing it for the world. I remember when um because both 50 and Wedding Party were premiered abroad at film festivals. 50 was premiered at the British Film Festival. Um, Wedding Party was premiered at TIFF. And I remember standing up on stage at the end of the viewing, especially in Canada, at the Wedding Party, and having standing there to, a standing ovation, and the majority of the people in the hall were foreigners. Really appreciate, and not just a standing ovation, but seeing them being carried along from start to finish and watching their reactions and seeing them understand the story that we're trying to tell, and not just understand it, but getting so caught up in in the emotion and laughing and empathizing with the characters, and there's certain validation there. Yeah, that this is just with that we're not just playing. We can do this and we can do this for real.
What responsibility, then, if any, do filmmakers and actors carry when dealing and telling culturally rooted stories for a global audience?
Very important to be as historically correct, especially when it's something that has to do with real life events. That is not a comedy. You have to be as factual as you can possibly be. You have to be as respectful as you can possibly be when you are portraying these things. And that's because, again, I will never overemphasize. I see it every day, uh, which is what partly informs my sparring engagement on social media. Things are sometimes intentionally taken out of context, and before you know it, you have a major storm on your hands. Do you, do you get what I'm saying? That just doesn't end in your backyard. So I think it's extremely important to be careful, factual, um, do your research, so that even if people disagree with whatever it is you bring out, you have your research or your facts to back it up. People will always disagree. You understand? There will always be criticism and comments. You're not going to please anybody, but there must be integrity in your work.
So what excites you most about the future of Nigerian cinema?
as we are evolving creatively, I see that some of the back end structures are also evolving. Do you understand? So there's hopefully in the more years in the years to come, um, these structures will be strengthened. Like I'm talking about the I think it's APRS, for instance, people who collect and disperse royalties on behalf of performers, for instance. It's a things like that. Um, the growth potential, there's more structure. When there is more structure, money follows. Even the practitioners are now beginning to understand that it's not just about creating the product, but actually setting up systems that can sustain these things that corporate can look at and say, okay, we understand this business. Because that has been one of the greatest challenges that we face as creatives. We do not speak corporate language. We do not understand finance language. So when you're looking for funding, a numbers man is not caught up in your passion and your emotion. They're looking at the hardcore number. So as we build these systems and strengthen them, then people who already have structures in place, and many more are being set up. There is a huge, huge um possibility for massive growth. And that is right for everybody, producers, actors, creators alike across board.
So, what parting advice would you give young actors attending this masterclass who want to build sustainable careers?
Put in the work. There really is no shortcut. uh, This thing, you're gonna have to put in the work. And I mean actually put in the work. Ask
Mm.
yourself why you are getting into this business. If it's like you want to be famous, I trust me when I say there are quicker and easier ways to become famous today than going into the acting industry. Acting is really hard work. It's really hard work. You have no idea of the amount of physical labor and mental and emotional labor that you need to put in. You're going to treat, you have to treat each project like it's your Oscar winning performance, whether it's one scene, whether it is the lead role, or whether you're a worker pass. Treat every single role. This is your Oscar winning performance. You never know who's watching. I'll tell you how I got my first, for example, I'll tell you how I got my first lead role. I had been cast in uh, a film, and it was a big role, a few scenes. We had negotiated and everything, and I was pretty excited. I was just happy. Like I said, these were early days. I was happy to be working. And this was a producer who was popular at the time. So yes, it was also a project that was likely to have eyes on it. So um we had been called in to do a table read that day. Now, back then because I was hungry for this thing. Anytime I got a script, I would read it back and front. I understood the story, I understood the characters. Um so on that particular day, the girl who was playing the lead didn't come. I don't know why she didn't come for. She was unable to come for the table read. So the producer director, like, okay, can I see you're here? Just read the lines for us so that we can have a free flow. And when here's another nugget. When you're at a table read, please you must read the characters. You must read in character. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You're not just you're in
Not,
character.
not,
You're playing
not just
character.
not just reading the dialogue, but
Yes,
right.
you are delivering the dialogue as you would the character, your character for the table read. So there's something to read for the character now. So I was a character reading for the character. Uh, and then as I was reading, the guy was looking at me. He would put on. By the time the third time he looked at me, he was like, "If I said I was, make this lead character." I thought he was joking. He said, "No, I'm not playing." It's like he was still playing the snake. She's reading it so well. And Brother Hakeem, that's how I got my first hero. Just because someone didn't turn up, I was asked to read, and I simply read in character, and that's because I had I read the script and I had come prepared. That's all. That's how I got my first hero.
Right. You put the work in and you came prepared and that's it. Okay. So, it may sound simplistic, but to young actors that are watching this,
Yeah,
being
very
prepared,
important.
right,
More
right, putting
importantly,
in the work. And
when fame, final word, when the fame arrives, because it will, remember what got you there. Never forget what got you there. It was the work that got you there.
that's wonderful advice. Wonderful advice, sister. So, and finally, what do you hope audiences take away from Son of the Soil?
We do some really fantastic, I mean, some really, really fantastic work comes out of Nigeria. And that's just one example of the great work that can be done here. Kind of, while it's not, it was a collaboration from different parts. There's so much we can do here. Th- there, there are huge possibilities here. I'm hoping that as people see it, it will spark even more collaborations from all across the globe. See the possibility here. Um, and then you hear all these wild stories about Nigeria, and not all of them are entirely untrue. But then you say, oh, but in spite of all of that, this was done here. So it's possible. We just maybe need to set things right. So I want them to take home the fact that we have great cinema in these spots. We have great talent in these spots. And when I say talent, I'm talking about cast and crew. And I'm hoping that this would spark even deeper interest, and hopefully following the interest will come the resources and the structures we need to further expand.
Sister, thank you so much. It has been truly an honor, and to hear your words of wisdom has been delightful and enlightening. So, sister, all I can say, my beautiful actress, producer, and queen of the Nollywood screen, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Brother Akib. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And this has been another masterclass from the British Council and Action Extreme. And I'm Hakeem from the New Black Film Collective. I hope that you have also gained an insight from our wonderful actress and performer and producer, Iretiola Doyle. Thank you.